The 1980s was a decade where fantasy cinema pushed boundaries and shocked audiences with its daring creativity. As directors began exploring deeper, darker themes within fantastical settings, they faced backlash from censors and critics who deemed these films too disturbing or subversive. From tales of horrific transformations to politically charged fantasy epics, the 80s saw a surge in films that straddled the line between art and controversy. These films weren't just breaking box office records, they were challenging societal norms, defying expectations, and igniting debates on the role of fantasy in film. While some of these films were heavily censored or banned, others later gained recognition as cult classics, admired for their boldness and innovation. Let's dive into the 10 most shocking and controversial fantasy films from the 1980s that left censors scrambling to keep up. The Dark Crystal, 1982. Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal stands as one of the most distinctive films in fantasy cinema. With its dark, dreamlike world, the film tells the story of Jen, a gelfling, who embarks on a journey to restore balance to his world by healing the fractured crystal of truth. This stop-motion animation film, devoid of human characters, relied heavily on Henson's puppetry mastery to create an entirely alien world. However, the film's atmospheric tone was unsettling, with its eerie creatures and sense of impending doom. Unlike many fantasy films aimed at children, The Dark Crystal embraced a darker, more mature atmosphere that left many parents and critics disturbed. The sense of dread, coupled with themes of good versus evil, was perceived as too much for young audiences. Several countries censored or banned the film for its disturbing content, with critics calling the creatures nightmarish. Over time, however, the film found its audience, becoming a cult classic and regarded as one of Henson's finest works. Its impact on fantasy cinema remains significant, showing that even the darkest stories, when told with artistry, can find lasting resonance. Clash of the Titans, 1981. Clash of the Titans brought Greek mythology to life through the groundbreaking stop-motion effects of Ray Harryhausen. The film follows Perseus as he embarks on a dangerous quest to defeat the monstrous Kraken and save his beloved Andromeda. The battle between the gods and monsters plays out in epic fashion, and while the visual effects dazzled, it was the film's treatment of mythology that ruffled feathers. The gods in Clash of the Titans are depicted with human flaws, selfishness, jealousy, and capriciousness, which some religious groups found sacrilegious. Critics also feared the violence and grotesque imagery, particularly the scenes with Medusa and the Kraken. Censors in some countries demanded cuts to reduce the impact of these scenes, while others banned the film entirely. Despite the controversies, the film became a box office success, and its creatures, designed by Harryhausen, remain iconic in fantasy film history. Clash of the Titans stands as a bold retelling of Greek myths, showing that fantasy can be both beautiful and brutal, while pushing boundaries in ways that some were not ready to accept. Time Bandits, 1981. Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits is a wildly surreal journey through time, mixing history, fantasy, and absurdity. The film follows a young boy, Kevin, who joins a gang of time-traveling dwarfs as they steal treasures from various moments in history. What appears to be a children's adventure quickly turns into a complex satire of politics, philosophy, and the absurdity of life itself. Its tone veers from whimsical to dark, often addressing themes that were uncomfortable for younger audiences. With its unexpected ending, which offers no neat resolution but a stark commentary on life's absurdity, Time Bandits stunned censors, who were unsure how to categorize it. Several countries demanded cuts or refused to screen the film, calling it too disturbing for children. Despite initial confusion and controversy, Time Bandits gained a devoted cult following, becoming an essential piece of surreal fantasy. Today, the film is celebrated for its uncompromising vision, its mix of humor and horror, and its ability to challenge audiences with its dark, existential themes. It proved that fantasy can be both fun and frightening, and that it has the power to make you laugh and think in equal measure. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, 1988. Terry Gilliam's The Adventures of Baron Munchausen is an ambitious and visually extravagant tale about a man who claims to have performed impossible feats. From traveling to the moon to battling gods, the Baron's escapades push the boundaries of what is possible. However, this film was plagued by a chaotic production that saw costs skyrocket and the story veer toward the surreal and the absurd. The film's mix of fantasy, politics, and subversive humor caused concern among both critics and censors. Its portrayal of war, death, and surreal sensuality was deemed inappropriate for family audiences, leading to cuts and bans in several countries. The film's lavish sets, extravagant performances, and often absurd narrative alienated some viewers, leading to mixed reviews and a poor box office performance. However, over time, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen has gained a cult following, admired for its boldness and artistry. It remains a testament to Gilliam's unique vision, showing that fantasy can be both an escape and a critique of society's ills. While the film's initial reception was controversial, it has since become a beloved classic for those who appreciate its imaginative chaos and refusal to play it safe. Excalibur, 1981. John Boorman's Excalibur presents a raw and unfiltered version of the Arthurian legend, stripping away the romanticism often associated with Camelot. The film's portrayal of King Arthur, his knights, and the tragic fall of Camelot is violent, brutal, and unrelenting. The knights are not depicted as noble paragons of virtue, but as flawed men driven by desire, vengeance, and obsession. While Excalibur was praised for its stunning visuals and epic scale, its graphic violence and portrayal of mysticism were a cause for concern. Some religious groups protested the film's depiction of sacred rituals and the blurring of fantasy with blasphemy. Censors in several countries hesitated to release the film, especially due to its disturbing imagery of birth, death, and violence. Despite these obstacles, Excalibur has endured as one of the most powerful and thought-provoking films about the Arthurian legend. Its dark, raw portrayal of myth and its themes of obsession and corruption have given it lasting significance, showing that the true power of legends lies not in their idealization, but in their ability to explore humanity's darkest aspects. The Company of Wolves, 1984. The Company of Wolves, directed by Neil Jordan, is a reimagining of the Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale that blends horror, fantasy, and dreamlike storytelling. The film tells the story of Rosaline, a young girl who dreams of wolves, sexuality, and the dangers lurking in the forest. With its lush, gothic atmosphere and vivid imagery, the film is far from the sanitized fairy tales most are familiar with. Instead, it explores themes of repressed desire, transformation, and the blurred line between dreams and nightmares. The film's graphic transformation scenes, where humans turn into wolves, were so realistic that they sparked outrage and censorship in several countries. Critics were divided. Some hailed it as a bold piece of art, while others deemed it blasphemous and indecent. The film was banned outright in some regions, and the British Board of Film Classification demanded cuts for its disturbing content. However, The Company of Wolves has since gained recognition as a cult classic, celebrated for its haunting atmosphere and its fearless exploration of taboo subjects. It stands as a powerful statement on the darkness that lurks in the myths we tell ourselves. Labyrinth, 1986. Labyrinth, directed by Jim Henson, is a whimsical yet eerie fantasy film that blends puppetry, surreal design, and a coming-of-age story. The film follows Sarah, a teenager who must navigate a labyrinth to rescue her baby brother from the Goblin King, played by David Bowie. While the film was marketed as a family-friendly fantasy, its dark, dreamlike atmosphere and themes of manipulation, control, and growing up made it unsettling for some audiences. Censors in certain countries debated whether the film was too mature for younger viewers, citing its complex emotional themes and the eerie, sometimes nightmarish creatures Sarah encounters. The film's surreal nature, combined with its shifting tone between whimsy and nightmare, left some viewers confused and disturbed. Despite its initial poor reception and box office disappointment, Labyrinth has grown into a beloved cult classic. Its imaginative visuals, unforgettable characters, and Bowie's iconic performance have ensured its lasting appeal. Labyrinth remains a perfect example of how fantasy can simultaneously delight and disturb, offering a deeper reflection on the complexities of growing up while still being filled with wonder. Legend, 1985. Ridley Scott's Legend is a visually stunning fairy tale about a young hero named Jack who must stop the Lord of Darkness, played by Tim Curry, from plunging the world into eternal night. The film is a visual feast, with lush forests, enchanted creatures, and epic battles. However, the film's dark tone and mature themes proved too much for American audiences, who were confused by its somber atmosphere. Universal Pictures drastically altered the film, cutting it down and replacing its haunting Jerry Goldsmith score with a pop soundtrack to make it more palatable for a teenage audience. Despite these changes, the European release of the uncut version was hailed as a visionary masterpiece. The film explores themes of innocence and corruption, with Jack's purity standing in contrast to the seductive evil of darkness. Though Legend initially flopped in the United States, it found a dedicated fan base in Europe and has since been reappraised as a stunning fantasy film. Its gorgeous visuals and philosophical themes about purity and temptation remain some of the most memorable aspects of Scott's storied career. Conan the Barbarian, 1982. Conan the Barbarian, directed by John Milius, is a brutal and savage fantasy film that turned Arnold Schwarzenegger into a global icon. The film follows Conan, a warrior who seeks vengeance against the warlord who killed his family. Set in a savage, lawless world, the film is drenched in violence and raw power, depicting a world where strength and survival are paramount. The film's graphic violence and pagan rituals raised alarms among censors worldwide. Several countries demanded cuts or banned the film entirely, citing its brutal depiction of violence and its unrelenting portrayal of barbarism. Despite the controversy, Conan the Barbarian became a commercial success, praised for its gritty realism and its unapologetic approach to fantasy. The film's themes of vengeance, survival, and strength struck a chord with audiences, and its raw portrayal of the barbarian hero archetype has influenced many films in the genre. Though censored in some regions, Conan the Barbarian remains a cult classic, a film that dares to embrace its primal energy without apology. Return to Oz, 1980. Return to Oz took the cheery world of the Wizard of Oz and turned it into a nightmare. Opening with Dorothy being sent to an asylum and threatened with electroshock therapy, the film's dark tone was jarring for both parents and children. Gone were the vibrant colors of the original. In their place, crumbling palaces, terrifying stone giants, and headless queens created an atmosphere of dread. Many parents were horrified, and some international distributors refused to release the film, deeming it unsuitable for children. The studio's marketing campaign struggled to position the film as either a family-friendly adventure or a psychological horror. Return to Oz barely made its budget back and vanished from theaters. However, over time, the film has been reassessed as a bold and surreal masterpiece. Its themes of broken dreams, resilience, and the power of imagination have resonated with adult audiences. What once shocked censors has become a cult classic, celebrated for its unflinching exploration of childhood fears and triumphs. These 10 banned or censored 80s fantasy films each dared to explore the darker, more complex sides of imagination, challenging societal norms and pushing the limits of what was considered acceptable in cinema. Whether through unsettling visuals, taboo themes, or raw violence, these films stirred controversy, often becoming cult classics long after their initial release. Despite facing censors and critics, their legacy endures as proof that fantasy, when handled with boldness and creativity, has the power to provoke thought, stir emotions, and in many cases, transform into timeless works of art. Fantasy truly knows no bounds.